show face. We carry our weight. The place for us is gonna show up soon. Cause we're connected in parallel, parallel, breathing in parallel. Ooh, there is a place for us, a place for us.
So, hi, I'm Bob Powell, and welcome to Follow Me to Financial Fitness. Our first two guests are Josh and Elise, who have just gotten engaged. Josh, Elise, welcome.
Thank you.
Hey.
Pleasure to have you. Elise, let's start with you. You're on TikTok, and you recently became engaged, and you became famous for a TikTok. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I knew that the kids were just as antsy as I was for me to get engaged. And so I knew I was gonna want to tell them. And I just he surprised me, he caught me off guard. So I caught them off guard and they just kind of went nuts. And I thought it would be fun to post it. And now we're here.
So just a little bit of background. You work as an athletic trainer in high school, and the video that we're talking about is where you showed your students that he asked the question or popped the question.
We put a ring on it.
Put a ring on it.
What are you doing? Shut up! No way! No!
Like I know everything's happening, but
Ring on it.
Yeah, they had been asking and all that kind of stuff, and I was like, just let him do it. He'll figure out in his own time. It'll be fine. And they come in my room and they hang out every day, pretty much. And so we've definitely created bonds, like friendships, basically. So I was excited to tell them.
So obviously you've shared your story about Josh, and so they were fully aware that perhaps you were thinking about getting engaged.
Oh, fully aware, fully aware.
All right. So Josh, so did you know any of this was going on? Did you happen to know that there would be a TikTok that was starring you in a role here that,
no, I didn't. She came home one day and she was like, "Oh, I filmed their reaction to showing them the ring," and I was like, "Oh, this is great. This is pretty funny." The reactions were like crazy, over the top. So I was like, "Oh, that's that'll probably do pretty well." I think one of them mentioned, "No, you should post it on social media and it'll probably do pretty well." And I was like, "Yeah, that's probably right."
Yeah. So one of the videos that you posted got 20, how many million views?
20.5.
All
The
right.
very first.
So that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I did not expect it to go that far. When I first posted, I was like, okay, let's get 1,000 views. Like that would be so cool. And then every time I checked it, like every 5 minutes, it would double. And then when we woke up the next morning, it was like 500,000. And then just over the course of the days, it kept going and going. And so I posted more. I had filmed other students, one of my teachers who was a friend of mine. And so I started posting those because people were commenting like, "This is great. I want to see more." And then I did like a little story about us and how we'd been together since, pretty much high school. And that was cute. So
something strange and interesting happened because of all these views.
I guess.
Yeah.
What's
Well,
that?
Well, does the name Kelly Clarkson mean anything?
Oh,
Yeah.
no, that you mean Kelly Clarkson. Yeah, so it actually hasn't aired yet. It airs on Monday, this coming week. So, but yeah, I had like media companies reaching out to me wanting to like buy the rights to the TikTok basically. And initially I thought it was a scam. I got really nervous. I went to him and I was like, "What do I do?" And then we looked a little bit into it. My sister-in-law, I asked her about it too. And we just kind of decided like they were trying to promote the video. So like they would let other companies use it. And then like I would get a cut of the money, but I figured it would be better, all of us. We were like, why don't we just own it? And then we can use it however we want. And it ended up working out really well because when Kelly Clarkson then reached out, one of her representatives, they specifically asked, like, is it like, do you own the rights? So I think if I had sold it, I wouldn't have been able to go on to Kelly Clarkson. So, but that was really cool. I did that interview right here in the apartment, like via Skype. And it was like a whirlwind. They prepped me and everything, but then when it happened, it was just like that. And then it was over. And I was like, oh my God, what just happened?
Well, let's hope that it turns out to be more than 15 minutes of fame for you.
Maybe.
So, Josh, tell us a little bit about yourself in terms of, you know, where you grew up, what you're doing now for where you went to school, what you're doing for a living now.
Yeah. So I grew up most of my life in North Reading. I went to high school there. And then I went to college at UMass Amherst, where I studied computer science. And then graduated after that and got a full-time job as a software engineer. Currently I work at EverQuote Inc. They're just basically like an insurance marketplace tech company located in Cambridge, and I've been there since. So it's going pretty well.
Great. So Elise mentioned that she was surprised that you had asked. Tell us a little bit about sort of the background to you planning to buy the engagement ring, buying it, and then planning the day to ask.
Yeah. So I really wanted to have her family like around. Her family actually lives in Virginia, so they're not, you know, super close, and they can't really share, you know, every moment that we have. But they were coming up for Christmas, and I thought it would be nice, you know, to pop the question when her parents were around, to kind of be with her while you know, we can celebrate. And I reached out to her soon to be sister-in-law, and I was like, I need help picking out a ring. Do you have any details, or do you want to go with me to the jeweler and pick a ring out? And she was like, yeah, of course. So we went down to Boston, we picked the ring out, and we planned a little proposal. I was like, I don't really want it to be super fancy. It's nothing too crazy. So we decided to go into like the seaport area. It's right behind Davio's. It's like a nice like boardwalk area on the water. And I was just like, I'm just gonna have to do it
And
there.
I'm down on my knees again. Thank you for the happiest year of my life. Oh.
We'll see what happens. And yeah, it was
At least
worked out.
you had no idea, right? No idea, Elise, that this was
No, I mean, we've been together for 8 years. So you know, it was starting to be that time, but I didn't think, for some reason, I had picked March of this year out. So like this time, for some reason, I don't know why. And so he definitely caught me off guard. I didn't think he was like so far in the process, because, you know, it takes some time to get a ring. So I didn't think that he had started the process. So he totally caught me off guard.
All right. So Josh, you had to learn about cut, clarity, all that stuff. And,
Yeah.
And
Of course.
right.
And you did good.
Yeah, no, hold it up. Yeah, it looks great. So when you purchased the ring, because we're going to be talking about money, did you think about the rules of thumb in terms of how many months' salary you should spend on the ring, and did that enter the equation?
I did. Yeah, I did a little bit of research. I was Googling around, and like I think it's some diamond company. I think it was like the De Beers company or something. I was reading a story about how they basically were pushing this sort of like 3-month salary type of notion when it comes to trying to buy a ring. I kind of took that into account, but not, you know, to a T. I kind of straight away and, you know, picked something out that I thought she would like. And, you know, it didn't have to necessarily meet a certain standard.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk a little bit. We're going to talk over the course of your sort of journey of getting married about lots of different parts of it. But let's just talk a little bit about where you are in your journey. Have you talked about a ceremony and a venue and caterers and photographers and music and all that? Or where are you in your journey?
Yeah. You want me to?
Go for it.
I've been doing most of it. I ask him questions. I approve everything. But so we do have a venue. It's in Nahant, which is like just off of Lynn. And we actually, one of the ways we decided to save money was it was just like exorbitantly expensive for a Saturday wedding. So we initially were like, okay, let's do it on a Sunday. We don't care. And then that ended up even being a little too much. You know, we didn't want to spend all this money just on one day. We want to make it a special day, but we don't think we should, like, if our very first expense being the venue is already over budget, like where are we going to find that money elsewhere? So we actually decided we're going to have our wedding on a Thursday because that saved us a whole bunch of money. So that was the first thing that we really were like, okay, how do we make this work? And then kind of for the rest of, you know, DJ, flowers, cake, makeup, hair, all that kind of stuff, photographer,
Wedding gown.
dress, videography, potentially. We have a list, we have a couple Google spreadsheets. And we kind of reached out to our vendors all at the same time instead of like booking one and then the next one and the next, because I wanted to make sure that whatever we picked, it would all come together instead of, oh, I love this photographer, like I don't mind spending an extra $1,000 on her. And now we've spent $7,000 on photography and we only have $7,000 left for everything else. And so I wanted to kind of like get all the quotes back, look at them, decide like, I like this photographer, I like this DJ, let's see how the numbers fit. And then once we had a really good idea for what those numbers were going to look like, that's when we said, okay, now let's book all of them. I think it might be a little tough initially because we'll have a bunch of like those first like down payments to put up right away. But my parents are helping us a lot with the wedding. They're pretty much paying for the whole thing. So that is really helpful for us. Anything over their budget, of course, we're in charge of. So we're trying to stay under.
Yeah. So I imagine that part of the challenge, when is the wedding, by the way?
August next year, 2023.
Okay, so you have a lot of time to get all these pieces to fall into place.
Yep.
All right,
We
so
want
any,
to do it all now. We want to be done with it.
right. So as you've looked at things, you've made one trade-off to planning it for a Thursday instead of a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. Any other trade-offs that you've had to make so far?
Honestly, not yet. We got a really good deal. We haven't signed the contract yet, but we got a really good deal with our photographer because I think she's really interested in the location that we're doing for our engagement photos. So she gave us a huge break. And I think without that, we would have had to make more of a consolation, a sacrifice, if you will.
Right.
There was one other photographer who I loved, like I fell in love with her work, but she got back to me with a quote and I was like, this is like way too much. So I was really upset about that. But to be honest, I think we've done our research and we found like really well-priced vendors.
Yeah. So it sounds like you haven't hired a wedding planner either. You're doing this all yourself.
Yeah, it's just another cost, you know?
Fair. And of course, there's always a honeymoon sometimes at the after a wedding. Have you started planning that too and budgeted for that?
We haven't done too much planning, but I mean, we've definitely thought about costs and you know what that would look like in terms of how much we need to save by, you know, whatever. We were thinking maybe like we could do it like the month after the wedding. We don't want to go right into the honeymoon, I don't think. We want to kind of have like a grace period of a little bit of a breather after the wedding and all the craziness that, you know, I'm sure is going to go on around the date. So as far as like saving, we're, you know, generally have an idea of, you know, how much we probably want to spend, but we were looking at Hawaii, but that might be a little too,
Not in the
little too
cards.
pricey for what we want. So,
I guess you could say that's a sacrifice. We
Yeah.
both really wanted Hawaii, but after just looking into it a little bit, we're like, you know what? We're just going to spend so much money on this and we could get a similar experience somewhere else.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you talked to a few people at your gym and they were like, Hawaii's nice, but
But
you can get a lot nicer at like an all
he made a
inclusive.
joke that anything you want to do, $200. You need an extra napkin at dinner, $200. So having anecdotal experience from someone else telling me that, it definitely put things in perspective for me.
Yeah. So talking about anecdotal experience, now that you've gone through what you've gone through so far, what advice would you have for someone, a couple who might be on the verge of getting engaged and at the very beginning of their wedding planning journey? Any words of wisdom?
I would say you need to have a few conversations before you start anything, because we definitely had a few disagreements in the beginning, more so just how to go about finding vendors and how to set a budget for each one. Like Josh really wanted to like set out, okay, this is how much we want to spend on this, and this is how much we want to spend on this. But for me, I was like, well, I have no idea what those things cost. I've never planned a wedding before. So I was going and I was just like shooting out emails to like all the vendors that I was coming across just to see like, well, how much do they cost? How much does this cost? Like, what's the average price? But he thought I was doing that because I just liked those vendors. And so we weren't quite on the same page of like what I was doing and how it was beneficial to like creating the budget. And so we definitely had a few nights about that topic. And so I think my biggest piece of advice is to like really talk about what you want, what's most important to you in terms of what you want to spend your money on, and how are you going to start creating your budget.
Josh?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the way that I was looking at it at first was, I don't know what anything costs at all. And I don't know what sort of like, how much would you need to allocate roughly, to each thing. Like, okay, you need, 20% of your budget is like covered for the venue and the catering or whatever. And 5% is the flowers, like all these different numbers were kind of like, that's how I approach things in terms of like a budget. But the difficult thing is like what you read online might not necessarily apply to, the today or where you are, your location, all of the different vendors that are around. And there's definitely a lot of advice out on the internet that says like, prioritize what is most important to you first, and then, go from there, kind of get prices first, figure out how much it's going to cost you, and then adjust your budget and make cuts to other things, accordingly, just because, you don't want to spend, $10,000 on flowers if it's not important to you. That doesn't really make any sense. So yeah, I kind of, I was molding to what she was kind of like, aiming for, is like, prioritize what is most important to you.
Yeah.
I think that'll work.
I actually think he put that a little bit in perspective for me, because I was just kind of like I said, I was just blasting out emails and stuff. And then it actually came with the venue first. He kept saying like, I'd rather our guests have a good experience instead of like, oh, this beautiful place. And it makes sense because, so our venue's like on the beach pretty much. And that was something that I wanted. I wanted it near the water. And so I did prioritize that, but it was also the most affordable beach option, because stuff out in the Cape is like really expensive. And plus then there's the whole travel part of it. But he kept saying experience. And I was like, you know what, you're right. Like I would rather have my guests say the food was really good, or the service was good, or the DJ was really good, instead of, oh, the view was pretty. Like I want them to remember having fun. And that was something that he definitely helped me like realize.
So our hope is that we get to follow your journey as you go through this wedding planning process, straight all the way down to the guest list and the hard choices that may come when you have to come up with a guest list. and also, when you figure out where you're going to go on your honeymoon, and then everything beyond, buying a house, kids, careers, all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. We got plenty. We have plenty. We're moving. We're gonna have a wedding, a honeymoon.
Yeah, a lot going on.
I actually might go back to school, so that'll be a whole nother thing that we gotta figure out.
What school for what?
So I'm thinking I want to get my master's in kind of like nutrition. I think I want to be a registered dietitian. So there's actually a brand new program at Merrimack in North Andover, and it looks really cool. I really like their curriculum, and so I'm actually currently like applying, and so we're gonna kind of see how it all works into everything.
You're at the beginning of life's journey. So exciting. So very exciting. All right. Well, this has been great. I can't wait to talk with you again and follow your journey here.
Yeah.
Great.
likewise.
I'm excited.